2020. We're going to count the proxies, and Randall's going to do a head count, and then we will determine whether, I don't think we're going to have a quorum, but we'll see. Okay, we do not have a quorum, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce the board, starting at the end with Mary Lou Barnes.
Hello.
Natalia Franklin, Chris Christoph, Joseph Costello, and I'm Larry Rocco. Now,
Who am I?
I'm sorry. This is our. I thought everybody knew you. This is our association attorney, Alan Ross.
Our lifesaver.
He's doing a good job for us too, by the way. We're going to get another $7,000 plus that's owed to us because we changed the documents. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. It was 3 years ago that we took back our association. It was 2017 January meeting. Since that time, I've been president, and we've had several board members change, but this past December, we passed a motion that we did have up to 7 board members, and we reduced it to 5. Reason for that, when we would hold meetings, if you have 7 board members before you can conduct business, you have to have a quorum of the board members. So with 7 members, you needed 4. With 5, we only need 3. And there was 2 meetings last year. We only had 3 meetings, so nothing counted. So that's kind of like a waste of time. So we're down to 5 board members. And what we have done in the past 3 years, I think, is if anybody who's lived here any length of time, it's pretty obvious what we've done, because if you drive down Village Boulevard from the north, when you cross the canal, you can see the difference. And that was thanks to a lot of hard work from everybody on the board. We've set up a roof maintenance program. We're trying to keep these roofs under control where we don't have damage, and you can't eliminate it at all because there are some vent pipe issues now. We got the roofs in pretty good shape. We got a good insurance rate because we do have a roof maintenance program, and that's through Campany Roofing. We've just this past year did $100,000 worth of concrete repair. And I know when you look out throughout the community, you can see that it doesn't look like we've done anything, because there's a lot of concrete repair that needs done. We're going to undertake a 2 or 3 year program and allocate so much money a year in reserves to be used for concrete repairs. It's a very important issue because it's a big liability. This past year, we got all the railings painted. We tried to pressure clean. We did it once. We're going to do it again. Randall's going to get bids, and we're going to get the entire community. We try to keep up with it with our maintenance guy, but one guy can't do it. We've got the community lit up pretty well. If you go in there at night and compare it to some of the other communities in the area, ours looks much better. And as a result, we still have issues with crime, but not as bad as we would have had we not lit up the community. We also undertook a big project with fence repairs. And I know there's people here who probably don't have theirs done yet. But we have some good news for you as well. We just found another company that's going to come in because the one guy couldn't make it with what we were paying him, and he couldn't keep workers. So We got Randall found another company, and as soon as we get the board approval, they will be starting this week. Or next week, I guess it'll be, before they get started. So be patient. We want to have all the fences done by May or June. Is that possible, Randall? We'll find
It
out.
depends how fast they can move.
Yeah, I mean, the weather's a big deterrent, because if it rains, the fences are wet, you got to wait for them to dry out. Figure you get a good couple of sunny days, and then it rains again. So that's been an issue this year, but it's going to be addressed. They'll get it done eventually, and I think that once that's done, then we can concentrate more on other issues, and we do have other issues, but we're working on it. We're trying to keep everybody happy. 524 units, that's not easy, but we do our best. And we've made a big decision to become self-managed. We was paying a management company $110,000 or $12,000 a year plus $127 plus markup on postage, markup on paper, markup on envelopes. So now we have eliminated all that. Randall Anderson is our new property manager. In the packet that we sent out for tonight's meeting, there was an information sheet, actually two, that gives all the contact information. And Randall he has a cell phone, he has an email, he has an emergency number. We have an office up at North Point. So he's the guy you need to, and you can go online to pay HOA and put in work order requests. If you have maintenance issues that need to be done, you can go online, pay HOA, put in your account number, which is your unit number, I believe, right, Randall?
Well, once you register it, then it's all set up. So
Yeah.
once you log in, then you can use it to pay or not pay. You can put in maintenance request, general request, ARC request. There's also will be, not yet, but we're going to be uploading documents, that people like to see.
Yeah.
So they'll have access to, meeting minutes and docs and applications also.
Right. The other thing is we had issues in January with payments. It was a big transition. The company that actually they let us go because they didn't like the fact that they wasn't going to be doing our accounting, so that must be a big profit for them. So they said, well, we can't manage your association unless we do the accounting. So a lot of things that should have been done didn't get done regarding the banks on their end, not ours. Randall made sure everything was up and running for January 1st. But any late fees in January will be waived if they shouldn't even be issued, because we told our accountant don't even charge late fees for January. Some homeowners had the money taken out twice, once by the old management company and once by our self-managed group. So we've refunded some checks. Some people said just let it go for February, but however it was handled. And we sent out coupon books. What we would like to do is make sure you, your friends, your neighbors, get everybody you can to make sure that their information is on file with Randall, because we cannot have outdated information and accomplish what you want us to accomplish. We need your name, your address, your phone number, and an email address. So if we get our records up to date, we'll be much more efficient. Trying to think what else. Oh, as far as maintenance, it all goes through the association. If you have a drain backup and it's in the middle of the night, We have an emergency number. Don't call a plumber and then expect us to pay the bill. We will reimburse you for what we normally pay, but over and above is going to be on you because we get good rates from Buckeye Plumbing. And we did have an issue on 67th Way where Buckeye came out, looked at it, and said they couldn't do anything till Monday. Well, on Monday, I got a hold of our property manager, and I said, I want a meeting with Buckeye Plumbing on Wednesday. I had that meeting, and I made it clear, if you can't be here when we need you, we don't need you. They changed their tune, and he vowed to me it'll never happen again. So I take him at his word. It's a big account for him. So you go through Randall. We'll make sure it gets done. I know in the middle of the night sometimes you're not thinking clear. Whatever the reason, call Randall. There's an emergency number. We, in the past, have reimbursed some people, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to take care of it and save us money and save you the problems. So, trash, if you have anybody that you see dumping at our dumpsters, and we have a lot of issues with renters. When they move in, they throw out all the stuff they brought that they didn't need. When they move out, they throw out the stuff they don't need when they move. And we pay to have that hauled away. So if you see it, report it. We'll charge the unit owner because we get a $1,000 deposit on rentals, on leases. Out of that $1,000 will come the money that it costs us to have that trash hauled away. So we are getting things done. We're getting a handle on it. And I think other than that, if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask.
There's a lot of ducks around, and some people feed them, and we have a very large issue with duck waste. All up and down, all the sideways in the parking lot. Is there anything we can do about that?
No, but I'm glad you brought that up because I see a lot of people walking dogs in our community, and I walk mine, and I always have a bag and some paper towels, and I see people going out with nothing in their hand but a leash.
Thank you. That was my next thing.
And if you see it and you know who's doing it, report it. Report it to Randall. We'll see they get a fine.
The governing documents have a nuisance provision in them, which says that you can't do, a unit owner or a renter can't do anything which interferes with another owner's right to use and enjoy their unit. So arguably, if somebody's feeding some ducks or whatever the situation is, which is becoming a problem, we talked about the defecating, we could request that that owner not feed those ducks anymore because it's, they're defecating on the sidewalk or the parking lot or whatever the situation is. But again, it can't be, it can't be something that's minuscule. It's got to be something that's ongoing, that's serious, and is becoming a problem. So you do have the right to request other owners if they are creating a nuisance. And obviously that doesn't come from you to them. It comes through the association as the proper channel to make that. And Randall would be the proper person to contact. And then a determination could be made as to whether any action needs to be taken.
Natalia brought up a very good point. If anybody would like a security camera and they're willing to monitor it and use your Wi-Fi, because we got prices on wired cameras for this association and it's like $500,000. So we have a few cameras around the community. I think Randall still has a couple that he's not using. I have one that I don't need. And we can even buy more if we have people that have Wi-Fi and would like a camera to monitor the dumpster and the parking areas. That's another good deterrent for crime, because I see on my cameras at least 2-3 times a month, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, guys with hoodies walking through the parking lot. When they see the cameras, they keep walking. But there's cars that are still being broken into. There's cars being stolen out of the parking lots. With all the lights, it deters it, but it doesn't eliminate it. The cameras will do a big job to eliminate that. So we want to get them throughout the community, but we can't find people who are willing to monitor it. It's all Wi-Fi. It's easy. I can show you mine on my phone right now.
But you have to be in a certain location, don't you? You can't just be like on
Well-
the side of the...
Well, your Wi-Fi, mine works. Randall said his doesn't work so well because he's near the canal, and the parking lot's in the front. So he said his cameras weren't working that well, but mine work, and they're the same situation. I'm on one end, and the parking lot's on the other.
I have cameras that I monitor, 53rd and 54th.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them on every way, because then you can track the movement. I get videos that I send to the police department. I can just email them right to the police department. So they're a good tool, and we'll pay for them, but you have to sign an agreement that if you move or no longer want to do it, they're the property of the association. So if anybody would like to do it, make sure Randall has your contact information, and we'll get started with it.
A comment about the security cameras as a potential option. What if we went to the units that had the locations that were the best placed for viewing the dumpster area? And what if we were in a position to offer that owner an incentive for doing so? Because the money that we would save in hauling just the perpetrators of dumping would really be beneficial to us.
Well,
we pay for the camera.
we pay for the camera, and people should be willing to do it to
Yeah.
make it a safer community without an incentive.
Yes.
There is something that we can do in areas where we can move the camera away from specifically right on your building or on your mansions, and have a Wi-Fi extender created which would expand your Wi-Fi network to where that unit would function, and that would give us the coverage to these viable areas where we're getting problems.
If someone is interested in installing a camera, though, you've got to go through the association. It shouldn't be done on your own. So we're aware of where the cameras are, obviously, and also we can make sure they're properly monitored and mounted.
I have a question. On 50th Way, I have noticed plants have been put up on the hillsides along 50th and 51st Way. I'm wondering why those have been put there before some residents' bushes have not been replaced over the past 15 years. So I'm not sure why those plants are so important,
May I answer that, Larry?
because it certainly doesn't cut down the noise. That we hear from 95, which the city said we would not hear when they took out the Florida pines. So it's just my concern, because I have a neighbor who's been waiting, and his bushes, are dead. And so it would be nice to
Larry, may
have
I speak to this?
the bushes replaced.
Mary Lou wants to speak.
Yes, go ahead, Mary Lou.
Thank you. Hi. The reason that we did that was that 50 and 51st were the most devastated by the taking down of the Australian pines on Village Boulevard. And if you were standing on a balcony on 50 or 51st in certain sections, and or even standing at the mailbox at 51st, or the dumpster area at 51st, you literally not only saw all the cars on 45th driving by, you now see all the cars on 95. I know, I'm explaining to you why. We made a decision out of consideration to those homeowners who were dramatically impacted by that change and using the amount of money that we could afford to take out of operating. And it was just a starting point. We planted those clusia hedges. And we purchased the ones that were 4 feet tall that are already now approaching 4.5, 4 3/4 feet tall. And we planted them as a starting point. We plan on looking at doing another section of 50th and another section of 51st. But that has nothing to do with hedges. What happened is, and you know this, the hedges were replaced going back a few years now. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Some hedges are dying. Randall has already, just in the month he's been our property manager, he and I, because I've always been overseeing landscaping now for quite a while, he and I have walked and looked at and reported hedges that need to be fully replaced. Not just planting a couple of plants, but fully replacing. And that list is growing throughout the community. And once we have a general idea this year of how many we actually have to fully replace, we're going to see if we can afford to do it all this year. If not, we'll do it over 2 years. And we will go out for bids to replace the hedges.
Natalia brought me this, and I'd like you to read before I have anybody sign it.
Send in a request
For cameras.
for
I think maybe you should make one up.
And then Randall will come out, appraise it, and it'll be added to the list.
I thought we did something like this.
And the other point on hedges, we do plan, and Randall's going to be making a list, hedges and sod. There's a lot of areas that need sod. So we buy sod by the pallet, we get better pricing. So we're going to try to get the best price and get the sod replaced. And all these dead hedges are going to be replaced. We just can't do it now, but in the spring, April, May, we will be busy replacing hedges. I couldn't agree more that nothing looks worse than seeing dead sticks around the fence.
Larry, one further thought about that is that, of course, they will not be planted until spring.
Right.
Because you absolutely don't plant things in January, February, or March because of the crazy weather we have and where we can have a 33-degree night a couple of weeks ago, whatever. So we don't plant until spring. But it's important for us to see how many, to hear from you. And if you have a neighbor who, when you're out walking your dog or whatever, and you see they need a new hedge, let them tell them, or you tell us they need a unit number. Everything you do for us is so helpful because Randall's only one person.
I'll comment to you,
think
Mary Lou, about the
I already drafted
landscaping and
this.
owner's cost.
Oh, maybe you did that.
Some
Maybe that's
long-term
what you got it
tenants,
from.
they
Yeah,
don't have
okay.
the same feeling about the outside aesthetics of their property. So when you enter onto 50th Way, the first unit on the right-hand side, they have screening down and sticks around the fence, and I don't know if they own or not, but not everyone will call and report that they want because they don't really care that the hedge is gone. So hopefully they don't have to do that for you to go ahead and put it in order.
Well, no, and Randall and Edva, our maintenance man, Edva reports also to Randall and to us when he sees things. We ask him to report back to us when he sees specific things.
Okay.
So he's doing that too, and Randall is doing it. And feel free on your way. If you want to be the eyes and ears of that way and report to us, we would love it.
I'd be happy to.
Does that include the
Larry,
lawn?
I want to say something.
There's a lot of weeds.
Yeah,
gaps
we are
and
very
that.
unhappy with the landscape company, but that's another story. We are
Just as
working
long
on
as
it.
you're unhappy with it, because we are.
Yes, well, a lot of us are, and we're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, now Joe would like to say something.
And I want to know that on a 51st Way, there is a put the sign dead end. the people come and go around and want to go outside. So there is dead end.
Okay.
Nobody can go and come outside. So there is dead end. That's the sign.
Okay, all right. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You would
Well,
like
it
a
does
website.
say no exit. I believe there's no
Yeah.
sign that says no
Maybe
exit.
dead end, anything.
Yeah, because that was to keep people from pulling in and just looking around, thinking they
Yeah.
could then
They
go
go
down
around
and go
and
around.
they not
Yeah,
know.
the no exit sign. Right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
All right, Joe.
The noise levels that we've experienced as a result of the Australian pines being taken down on Village has been a problem, as well as the safety along the Village area. And the Property Owners Association has been trying desperately to work with the city to get them to do something. They don't want to spend the money, although they spent almost $1.5 million on the nonsense they put in, okay, along that way, including that $450,000 edifice that sits on Cumberland, okay? The bottom line is there are safety walls being built, not walls, but there's going to be a barrier built on the other side of the of I-95 to prevent cars from coming through, because we've had too many instances of cars coming through that barrier. Okay, there is still an ongoing effort to talk to them. Now, I'm going to say this now because we've got people that live in the community. March, there's a municipal elections going on. There are 6,600 family units that are part of the POA in the Villages area. It's a lot of people. Councilmen that you vote for or don't vote for are passing or not passing bills that you might want to improve your community. If you don't go to these voting booths and vote your interest to a councilman who's going to support the wishes that you have for your community, then you're going to suffer the consequences. So you've got to take a proactive issue with these here local votes for councilmen. They're very important. There is another issue that we're facing that we've been talking about, and that is our water bills here. Our water bills are 1/3 of our operating budget. That is slanderous. That is outrageous. Okay? And the reason for it is the way when they built the development, and they built these here meters, that they bulked the number of units on them, which allow for high volume usage on that particular meter, which throws us into a higher commercial rate that we're paying for the water that's being consumed in it. We have recognized, I've spoken to Southwest Florida Water District and was told that it's not their province. We belong to the city of West Palm Beach. So I spoke to them. In their conversations, I said we would like to have individual meters put on our units. And the state of Florida will give us that meter for nothing. Okay? And it's an electronic unit which it will provide for access to be able to be read without having people running around your homes taking readings. I was told that that's not going to happen because West Palm Beach has its own FIFM and they are not agreeing to this procedure. Okay? There is one other factor that we're going to talk about. Hopefully during the year we'll have some information for you. I proposed and will propose that we get lawyers to deal with this issue. The way they bill us is because of volume. But one of the things they don't do is they don't divide that volume to the number of family units that are on it, which would drop the volume rates down into lower rates. So even if they drop down 25%, we're talking about a lot of money here. You're talking about being able to really impact your monthly maintenance fee and reduce that number down substantially. It also would be an improvement to our future sales for the community. Now, the Saratoga Point, which is a community right next to us, they are all individual meters. Their meter water bills are running like $40, $50 a month. Okay? We're 114, I think, is what we're at.
An average.
Okay?
That's what everybody pays out of that
But you're
$351.
not going to get things done if you don't deal at the municipal election level. Forget the senators and the congressmen. You've got to get to the municipalities. This West Palm Beach group, all they're doing is building beautiful edifices downtown. Okay? They're doing nothing for us. We got to address that. That's all I want to say.
Okay, now there's one other issue, well, actually two. Everybody, when they moved in here at one time or another, whether you purchased or rent or whatever the situation is, you signed off that you got a copy of the documents, and since then there's been rules and regulations that have been added, and everybody that's moving in recently gets a copy of those. And there's now Randall Anderson is going to be, we got new purchase agreements and new lease agreements drawn up by our attorney, Alan. And we are going to require signatures that you've read and understand them. Because everybody just signs, and I know when you got all these papers to sign, you just want to get through it. But at least when you go home from the closing or the rental agreement, read what you signed. Each unit has 2 parking spaces. Not 3, not 4, not 5. 2. Now, if you have, some people have a son or a daughter that's living with them that's older and they have a car. If that's the situation, and you can make an agreement with a neighbor, whether it's in your particular area or down the street, where they will allow you to park there, even if they charge you nothing or if they charge you a certain fee per month. Make an agreement. We need a copy at the association so we know you have an agreement. If you park in somebody's spot or are in a guest spot, you're going to be tagged and towed. A lot of these ways have, everybody says, oh, there's a lot of guest spots over here. And they're always empty. But guess what? They're reserved for guests. That's the way the developer laid it out. That's the way it was put into our documents. Those are the facts. And we have to abide by them. I got a report just recently where somebody's speeding through their parking lots. If you know it, get the license number, report it to us. We'll send them a letter and let them know that they better slow down. But we got to address speed in the parking areas, and we have to address people parking 2 and 3 cars when they only have 2 spaces. So, and the other one is dogs. 20-pound limit, and I see all these 100-pound dogs walking around, and of course I know some of them emotional support animals, some of them are service animals. We can't do anything about that, but we need the proper documentation. So Randall has to make sure that all this happens, and he's got a full plate, but I'm going to help him out with a lot of this. But we have to get things under control because it's not fair. We're trying for uniformity throughout the community as far as appearance is concerned and as far as people are treated is concerned. We want everybody to be treated the same. Okay, anybody else have anything to say besides that?
I have a question. For investors, in case of a sale of a property, if the property is under lease, can that lease be continued, or are we still under the 2-year no leases allowed?
If a property is sold to an LLC or a corporation, they cannot rent it for 2 years from the closing date. They have to either live in it or leave it sit empty. Now, that was a result of Alan changing our documents last year. Now, we recently had a corporation buy a unit, and they want to have occupants in it. And my first question to Alan was, I thought they weren't allowed to rent it. He says they're not. How? Well, what are they putting occupants in there for? So I'm going to let him explain that.
I think, back to your question, I think what you're saying is if you sell the unit and I'll get to the other thing. If you sell the unit and there's an existing lease,
Correct.
what happens to the tenant? Okay. What we, one of the amendments we did last year was to work on the lease restrictions. And what it says is, of course, the term of that lease, wherever it expires, they can stay in there. Okay? However, upon expiration of the term of that lease, the 2-year period would start to run after that. Okay? The idea being that, if somebody's 6 months into a lease, you just can't go in there and kick them out. And there's some legal issues about that. But that's basically the procedure that would be followed. Okay? Now, one of the things to try to tighten things up a little bit, one of the things we put in the amendments, if you are an occupant, okay, and it can be somebody that's been asked or assigned to live in the unit by a corporation, it can be somebody that's living in the unit for more than 30 days without the owner being present, you have to fill out an application to be there similar to being a leasee, being a tenant. So that's part of the requirements, and you got to get a background check and do all the things along with that. Now, if someone tries to circumvent that, or some company tries to circumvent that, the leasing restriction, the 2-year leasing restriction, by saying, well, this is just an occupant, okay, and we're not leasing, okay, one of the things we put in the governing documents is that the association has the right, and the person in that unit has the obligation, I don't care if it's somebody that's moved in recently or somebody that's been there for 6 months, to give information to the association about the basis for the occupancy. Okay? So we can ask them that. Okay? Are you have a lease? What's going on here? And so forth. All right? And of course, if they've done something that is improper by putting somebody that's really a tenant, call them an occupant, then the association has the right to take action to evict them. Okay? Because that's a misrepresentation. Things we also put in there, for example, if you see a change in cars that are being parked in these spaces, okay, all of a sudden instead of you've seen a Honda and a Toyota there for the last 6 months, and all of a sudden you see, wait a minute, they're gone, okay, now we have 2 other cars, okay, they should and they have to fill out an occupancy application, and we'll find out, what the relationship is to the LLC. Are they really somebody that is associated with the LLC, or are they trying to circumvent the tenant restrictions? It's always a difficult issue because if somebody's not going to be honest and forthright with you, you got to do an investigation to find out if they're telling the truth or not. But the bottom line is we put some mechanisms, some teeth in the governing documents that requires an occupant or a renter for that matter to report back to the association about who's in the unit, what relationship they have to the owner, what the cars are, and so on and so forth. So if you think that there's someone that has moved out and now is a tenant, or if somebody is living there in terms of occupying the residence, okay, and they're not the owner, okay, you should let Randall know that, send an email to him, and the association can conduct an investigation, okay? And again, if it's determined that they're in violation of the governing documents, at that point the board can make a decision as to what type of action they want to take. The idea being here is we want to know who's in the community, we want to have an identification of those folks, and we want to be able to conduct a background check to make sure that nobody's in the community that possesses or represents a threat to anyone else. And this comes up from time to time, it does. But with the ability to do background checks now for everyone, even new owners, we'll have a better handle as to who's in the community if it's a problem. The vast majority of the time, it's not a problem. It's the exceptions that you got to keep an eye on. And I know in the past, because we've been involved in it, there's been situations where people have moved into units that should not have been in there, and we've had to take action to get them out. Now, eventually, you get them out and so forth, but the idea here was to put some teeth into the enforcement and information gathering process. We didn't have that before last year. So now we have it as part of the declaration. And if they don't give the information, that's a violation of the declaration, and you can fine them or whatever you want to do.
Is that only for the LLC?
It's two situations, okay? If a unit is purchased by a corporation, an LLC, which is really a corporation, a partnership, a trust, basically what we call a legal entity, okay? They're required under our new amendments to designate who is going to be occupying the unit, okay? Now, of course, if they lease it, they couldn't do that because we have a 2-year restriction. But if they try to get around it, then they have to fill out an application. We have to know who they are. They have to do a background check and everything like that. And as part of that, if we learn somehow that this is not a real occupancy, or it looks like these folks have no relationship whatsoever to this LLC, okay, then that alerts us that we need to make further inquiry to find out. The second situation is where somebody moves into a unit. The owner says, go ahead, you can go ahead and use my unit now, okay? That's a no-no under the new governing documents. If they're there for more than 30 days without the owner being present, unless they're a relative of the owner, okay, that's the exception. But if they just say, all right, Mary Smith, you can use my unit now. No. They can't do that. That's a violation of the governing documents. They have to fill out an occupancy application, a background check, everything that goes along with doing like a lease. Okay.
So if it's an individual owner that occupies and then moves out and leases it and goes through the board, that has to be a 2-year lease?
Yes. No.
That's
Well,
still in place?
if it depends when they purchase the unit. We put a grandfather clause in the amendments for, I won't get into legal reasons, but it has to do with impairment of contracts, issues, and so forth. So it only applies now to purchases after March. I think that's when we filed it.
March of last year.
March of 2019. So if you're an owner now, okay, or prior to that, the new leasing restrictions don't impact you in terms of the restriction in 2 years and so forth, okay? So
We have a unit on 50th Way, the first unit on the left, that was vacant for many years after the real estate crash. It was renovated and now it's being used for a couple of nights or a week. And I reported it to David, the last property manager, and he said he couldn't find any Airbnb notification, but they have a lockbox on, like when the door was open, I could see through, so that's how people are accessing it with the information.
that's a no-no.
But it's only, but I've seen a half a dozen people throughout the last year and a half use that unit that have different vehicles.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, that's
That's a violation of the
Yeah.
governing documents,
Yeah.
and we need to keep an eye on that. For obvious reasons,
Yeah.
okay? You don't want,
It's the
transient
fir-
people
it's the
coming in and out of
first
it.
unit on the left on 50th Way after the curve, directly across from that other unit with no hedges, right there. Somebody was there last weekend, 2 nights, and they were gone, and I know it because I can see them going to the beach and, yeah,
so they're using it as a vacation rental.
correct.
Okay.
Airbnb or something.
Okay. Again, we amended the governing documents, so Airbnb rentals are not
Of
allowed.
course not.
Okay? So,
They're getting away.
and how you discover that sometimes is you go on the VRBO or the Airbnb site and plug in, Village at Sandalwood Lake South or the address
David,
and see if
I
it comes up.
reported it, and David said he couldn't find it, and I think it just went flat after that, but
Okay.
I did notify the,
Well, and again, they don't have to advertise, obviously. They
Yeah.
could do it independent of that, but
it's-
that's
it's
one
the
way of
owner,
investigation.
Whoever's doing that, I mean, that's the.
No, we need to
Yeah.
we need to send a letter to them
multiple
saying that
cars and-
that's a no-no. Again, the idea is you want to be able to know who's in your community. You don't want transient people coming in and out, and you don't want your units used for things that they shouldn't be used for. And that was the whole, in all fairness, this board has really done a remarkable job in trying to put into place some restrictions, some limitations, some rules to make the community a better community. So everybody feels like it's a safe place, to improve the community, which will help with anybody's sales and your enjoyment of living there. So again, I think we've made some good strides. There's other things we've done we can talk about, but those are some of them. And I know the board is committed to making those improvements in the future. Yes, sir.
I'm also on 50th Way, and Christmas Eve, we had a water main, or something broke, and still today, it's still roped off. With
Thanksgiving.
caution tape. I have a
There are places
2-year-old
like that.
that runs through there, and if he gets hurt, you guys are gonna be in trouble. You're a lawyer, you know. It's the
Well-
association's problem to address it, and I've addressed it before, and it's still covered.
Did
Still
you-
got caution tape on it.
Could you send an email to Randall letting him know
We
that?
spoke about it.
Okay.
I said, and I talked to, and even, I forgot his name, Edmund, the maintenance guy. He
Edmund.
shuffled and leveled it out,
Uh,
but it's still taped off, and it's still just all sand. It's a big sand pit.
Okay. Well, obviously, that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
One of
It's
our-
been since Christmas Eve.
It's one of our projects that's, like Larry was saying earlier, when we have enough little spots that require a full pallet, then we get it and we actually, there's enough now that we can do it to run around and start patching a few places up.
But let me just say, that's exactly what needs to be done, okay? You need to, and understand, managing an association, you think about it, this is really a multi-million-dollar corporation that, these guys have to manage, and they do it for free. So you have to have a little patience, but with input from the residents, okay, and from the people living there, that'll help push the ball down the field, so to speak, to make it a better community for everybody. And, that's the direction. But again, sometimes, they don't know about it, unless somebody says something. And, again, the channels that you should go through, you go to the property manager, and then he'll take a look at it, and it may be that he has to bring it up at the next board meeting, okay? And that may not be for, 40 days or something.
They came and flattened it out.
What's that?
I said, when I told them the first time, it was
Yeah.
a big pile of junk.
Right.
They came a couple of days later and leveled it.
Okay, well, that's
But
good.
it's still
Right.
paved off, and every time it rains, we have a pile of sand. They power wash just behind where my car is, and now 3/4 of
Yeah.
the parking lot is still really black and dirty,
Right.
while this spot is shiny clean.
And what I would encourage you to do again is to document it, put it in an email, send it to Randall, and he can put it on the list of things that needs to be attended to. Sometimes, in all fairness, when you just say something verbally, say, well, I said this to him and said that to him, Randall's hair's on fire. That's our latest comment lately, just in terms of the transition and trying to get everything done. And if he has something in writing, then he says, okay, I need to put this in the folder for addressing at the next board meeting. Because remember, he reports to the board. That's his boss. And, he takes direction from them, and that's how, it works.
But a bush, not to say what she was saying, that they look ugly, it's not a hazard. A hole in the ground
No,
is a hazard.
I understand.
I'm a 2-year-old.
Absolutely. Whether it's a hazard or a bush or whatever. Yeah, I get it. No, I think we all
So a
understand.
month,
We all understand the concern.
grow some grass, I'll pay for it, just put it down.
Well, the problem, part of the problem is the time of year, too,
It
that's-
still shouldn't take a month to fill.
No, it's not that.
Hold up.
It's the winter weather and planting sod.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's
Sod.
cautioned off, so I live in this area, and it's cautioned
Sod,
off.
you don't put sod in
Mary,
All right, well-
sod can be put in now. At school, we just put 40 pallets of sod down in the field. So right now, it still can be, it's not that cold, but definitely it can be done. It can be done
Well, we'll
now.
look into it. That's not what I was told by numerous landscape companies who.
Well, the landscape companies have to maintain it.
Yeah, maybe.
Just put it all in.
All right, any other questions?
The only other comment I would let everybody know, and some people know that,
At the last board meeting, there was some discussion about a screening contractor that you had planned having addressed at this meeting.
screening contractor?
I believe it's referring to the background check.
Is that the background? Oh, you're talking about background screening?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's part of what we're doing. Yes, that's the application that we're now having everybody to complete. And again, it was going on before, but now we've made it more comprehensive, okay?
The question had to do with who would be doing this and why some could and why some shouldn't.
Well, I don't know exactly what that means, but there's there's a companies that do these background investigations, and you contract or work with them and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we need to get, criminal background check and financial check on them. You apply, it's part of the application process, and then you get a report back.
I think the debate was whether Randall should be doing the background checks. You had advised Larry that it shouldn't be Randall doing it, or something to that effect. I think that's what.
Well, what we've done, I have no problem with Randall doing it, but the checks need to be made out to the association, not Randall.
But just so you understand,
Now, Randall was using, in a couple cases, I said he had to do it because we had people waiting to move in. He used a company that he has through his real estate office to do the background checks. And he said, well, Larry, it costs me money. I said, I don't expect you to lose money on it. You'll get paid for it. But in the future, we're going to have our own company, and we're going to be set up with a credit card from PNC Bank that they can charge us for whatever we do each month. And I just got the quote in the mail today, and I just had a chance to look at it briefly, but they're giving us off of what they normally charge because we're an association. They're discounting it almost $900 a year. So I'll be going over that with the board, and then we'll make a decision on that. But the checks, if we're going to, the association needs to benefit from these background checks so that we can offset some of the costs that we now have with our office and other things. So, and Randall, he said, well, I see where you're coming from, and he understands.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's the name of the company?
The one I have, I have the quote at home. It's in my email, but
I think it's Rent Perfect.
Resident check. The company that I've used for a long time is called Rent Perfect.
Yeah.
But there's another one that you've been looking into that Alan was familiar with. It's called Resident Check.
yeah, this is a division of Resident Check that does nothing but background checks and credit checks. So
just so everybody understands, there's an independent company that's actually doing these checks. Okay, obviously Randall's coordinated and so forth, but he's not, contacting the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to see, that's not, he's not doing that or getting, pulling up credit information,
I have a question.
which is typical.
In replacing the sliding glass doors, if I wanted to get an impact resistant, and because of the noise on 95, one that is a little more sound, am I able to do that? Do you have to, I would assume you have to agree on the quality of the workmanship that's going in. But do we have a right to do that? So you don't need to put up panels, or you don't need to put up...
Can I explain that?
Alan?
Yes,
Yeah, well, you have what's called a architectural review committee and part of your governing documents. So if you're going to make a major change like that, and obviously having impact-resistant windows that are soundproof is something that's beneficial, but you do have to go through the ARB process. The reason being is the association wants to make sure that it's properly done, it's properly permitted if that's necessary, so we don't have an issue down the road about, some right color, some, sliding glass door blowing off the frame and hitting somebody.
Alan?
Yeah.
Also, you own the glass. So you have to pay to have the glass replaced. But the sliding door frame itself, that is managed by the association.
Well, that would have to be changed. Because
So
it's
that is,
more clean.
well, let me finish. So then what you would have to do, the board would have to say, okay, you want 4 new impact
well, if they're
windows
upgrading, we don't
installed.
pay for the
And
upgrade.
we'd
We
have
only
to
replace the
work
original.
that out on the
What's she saying?
Because if someone breaks your window, you have to pay for a new
Yeah,
window.
but you're not going to pay for the frame.
No, we're not. And that's what I wanted to clarify.
No, I didn't finish. I know we're not gonna pay for the frame, but if you're going to install the glass in the existing frame.
No.
Well, it won't work in the existing frame.
In another community, it
Okay,
works
no,
fine.
the existing frame is not quality for the type of window that would go into it.
You just need to submit an application. That's the bottom line, and
Yes.
have it reviewed.
And we don't care what color the inside of the door is, can be white, but the outside has to be bronze.
That can all be submitted in the new homeowner web portal, HOA.com.
You're trying to get me onto that.
Don't worry about the rest of it.
Well, no, we're actually not even in meeting. It's just a townhouse. Townhouse. The only other thing I was going to mention real quick is prior to last year, there was some difficulty with us being able to recover in full assessments that were owed to the association. We did some amendments that now allow us greater opportunity to recover money back from sales, from banks, mortgagees, and from prior owners. So, again, that's been helpful. The lifeblood of an association is making sure that you're in good financial shape, and the assessments are important. Years ago, I think some of you know that this community had a problem with collecting assessments. We've cleaned that up. There's very, very well, I shouldn't say few, but there's probably no more than 10, 12 at any one time that are in collections with our office, which is where we handle it. So I just checked the other day, and I think it was 12 or 15 or something. So, again, that's pretty good for your size community. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's all right, no. Okay, so if nobody else has any questions, we're going to adjourn the meeting.
Can I say something?
All right, go ahead, Natalia.
We would like to be more active to come to our meetings, but if you are not able to come to our meetings, we have channel on YouTube. Sandalwood Lakes South. And when you type it on search on YouTube, you can see all our meetings.
But if you would like to attend the monthly meeting, they're up on Shiloh Drive at the Shiloh Clubhouse the third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. It's always posted on the bulletin boards, so if you need the exact address, it's on the bulletin. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Take care.